and welcome to Carolina Varsity's 2013 look at the 4A NCHSAA playoffs. I'm Dale Ross.
Now I'm the pet man, Matt Morrow.
Matt, this next game is a pretty big ball game. Number 5, High Point Central, 9-3, coming down to play number 4, Charlotte Catholic, 10-2. Two should be very records and seeding wise and otherwise fairly equal teams. Last week, High Point Central defeated Hopewell 38-21. I don't think there's a lot of surprise there. And Catholic defeated A.O. Brown 56-14. Again, I don't think a whole lot of surprise.
Right.
Unfortunately, I kind of picked that to be a blowout. And I wasn't sure about the High Point Central Hopewell game, and Coach Jenkins mentioned in the paper that he didn't feel like his team played very well. But
right.
Anyway, I personally think that's a little bit of a struggle with Hopewell, what they had. My big question about High Point Central is, can they stop Elijah Hood?
Yeah.
It's all going to be about Elijah Hood and can they stop him. And then on the flip side, can Catholic stop Jamel Mack to Juan Foggy? That little combination that worked very well for them in the game against Hopewell. So we got some stars on both sides. We've got some NC State and Carolina commits going against each other. Be interesting to see how this game plays out.
Yeah, my theme for this game is a tale of two different teams, and on offense, you can't get any more different than what these guys do. High Point Central's a fast tempo spread type offense, and Catholic is the old school traditional wing T. So it's going to be real interesting to see from a scheme perspective the two different offenses going against each other here. The key for Catholic, I think, is they got to find a way to break the rhythm and schedule of High Point Central's offense. And I think the best way to do that is to get pressure on the quarterback. High Point Central, you just mentioned Jamel Mack and Juwan Foggy hooked up for a couple of touchdowns against Hopewell. We all know, and Catholic has seen this plenty of times playing in Charlotte, teams try to attack them with the spreads and through the air and such. So they'll have a plan. The question is, how well can High Point Central block up front? I think that's the key. Because they have Big Joe Hurney in the middle of that defensive line, and then they'll bring Hood, who plays some defense. They'll bring him on some blitzes as well, and they like to delay blitz him. And that's going to be the big key there for High Point Central, because if they can't protect, it's going to, really limit what they can do offensively in terms of throwing the ball and even running the ball with the quarterback as well. Their offensive line has to be able to get push in the run game, and they're going to have to be able to hold up long enough for High Point to get those passes off. One thing I think High Point can do against Catholic is screen with the receiver. I hadn't seen that a lot against Catholic this year. I think receiver screens are a good way to attack Catholic. They get some speed and skill guys in air with one-on-one, forcing them to make plays and tackle in space. And outside of Hood, I don't know if Catholic can tackle in space that well. But Hood is all over the place on defense too. And I think that may be something High Point Central, isn't really counting on that much. I think also for Catholic, the ends have got to contain on the quarterback, because this guy can run. He's got over 1,200 yards rushing on the season. For High Point Central, playing this wing T, we've heard that they like to play a 4-3 typically on defense. They can't stay in that. They're going to have to play at least 8 guys in the box. And we've talked about it all year. 5-man line, 3 guys at linebacker, and your safeties are going to have to come up and be able to make tackles one-on-one, or at least flow well and get to the ball and slow him up. And they got to play gaps on defense. Don't get caught up in the window dressing. Catholic does a lot of things where they'll, pull guys in motion and, well, not really motion, but they'll have a lot of misdirection going on and such. You got to be when you sit down and look at the tape, and we've said this before, you got to look at where they like to attack. And Catholic loves to attack off tackle and where the tight end is. That's where they have their big advantage. Because they have these, and they're not as big this year, but they have good technique, sound blocking tight ends. And their tackles are big. They got Big Joe Hurney in there in the interior of the line. They come off the ball well. Their technique is sound. And, you know, you've got to be able to play gap control football. And when you get to the tackle, you got to wrap them up. Because, I mean, Elijah Hood, like I told you last week, the run I saw against Providence in the South Mac 8 championship game, he's not going to stop. You got to get that man on the ground, you got to gang tackle, and you got to rally to the football. And then, once you get all that figured out, now they got the second back and Drew Tom show going. Then they got the play action pass going, and now they're even running with the quarterback. So all those elements High Point Central is going to have to worry about and contend with. And all that being said, that's going to keep that high-powered offense on the sideline. So, you know, it's going to be a real interesting matchup. But off you know, what I know, I like Catholic in probably a closer game than they've been in a while. Just because I think High Point Central will be able to score a couple times off some big plays. But I think Catholic has seen this kind of stuff before. They're going to have a good idea on how to defend it. I don't know if High Point Central has seen this kind of wing tee anytime.
Yes, I'm positive they have, yeah. Up in that part of the state, they run it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they should have at least an idea on how to stop it. The question is, you know, obviously, I don't think they've seen a back like Elijah Hood in that offense.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference is Elijah Hood. And as far as Catholic tackling in space, their kids are very good technique kids. So, you know, their advantages are they know their positions and they play their positions and execute well. They may be a step slower or not quite as athletic as some of the kids that you'll throw at them, but they're very sound. Thus, they typically limit very big plays. And the whole thing about in space is going to be not so much tackling, but can the kid be in position and not get out athletic. That's the big thing about those bubble screens you're talking about. Those wide receiver bubble screens is, you know, you're trying to get, you got a couple of blockers, but you end up having a one-on-one situation typically with that wide receiver, and it comes down to his feet and hips and the other kid's feet and hips, and who can move them better and who can keep them in position better. Right. I think it's going to be a close ball game too. I think this could be a very similar ball game to what they faced with West Mecklenburg. Is what I see, that kind of a ball game. I don't think either team's going to get high in scoring. I think both teams are going to be able to contain a little bit, but you know, High Point Central is going to have a tough task in containing Hood and holding him to, you know, 3 scores, let's say. So I think it should end up being a good ball game because I do believe Hood will get a lot of yards, and I believe on the flip side, High Point Central is probably going to get quite a few yards through the air. So I think we're going to have a good ball game over at Caffrey Stadium. You guys enjoy it.
It's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time, it's tricky. It's tricky. It's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time, it's tricky. I met this little girlie, her hair was kinda curly. Went to her house and bust her out,